You didn't even know what the kitchen debates were? It's okay, don't worry, I'll teach you all about it. During the Cold War, the political orthodox between communism and democracy caused tensions around the world, which resulted in many verbal exchanges by high level officials, even at abnormal places such as the kitchen.
The Cold War was a series of events that could have led to a nuclear war.
It changed political relations around the world and was between two main superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. Geographically, Canada was stuck with weapons flying overhead if a war was to ever commence. However, Canada still supported the Americans, as written by Cranny Michelle in Think History Canadian. Both superpowers constantly aggravated the other side, and eventually a profanity filled, fierce, and influential debate took place on July 24, 1959, between
Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev and Vice President Richard Nixon of the United States. According to A&E Television Network reports from 2012, it was during an open ceremony of the American National Exhibition in Moscow, and they openly discussed major conflicts through kitchen supplies.
The exhibition was an American model kitchen created to display the technological advancements in appliances an average worker in America can afford. In the New York Times, an article named Nixon and Khrushchev argue in public as U.S. exhibit opens by Salisbury Harrison E. from 1959. The objective of the debate was to promote understanding between the two countries. The importance of the debate is often forgotten, but it's a monumental part of history. The kitchen debates are what caused the tensions of the Cold War to never end, and it caused the United States and the Soviet Union to intimidate each other to the point that neither of them uses nuclear weapons against each other, and the war drags on. To begin with, during the kitchen debates, it was often implied that the United States are not more superior than the Soviet Union, and that they will be in the same place economically and militarily. The United States proved their mindset when Harry Truman stated his doctrine in his speech in 1947. Nikita Khrushchev himself said that
Сколько она существует лет уже? 300 лет? 300 лет? Ну, 150 лет независимости. Вот мы тогда скажем, что Америка 150 лет, значит, существует, вот ее уровень. Мы 42 года, еще не завершилось. Еще нам 7 лет, и мы будем на таком же уровне, как Америка.
according to the transcript from the Central Intelligence Agency kept from 2002. This threatened the United States as now they are aware that the Soviets are not vulnerable to the Americans. Consequently, Canadians also have a reason to fear the Soviet Union. Khrushchev also implied that Americans are ignorant, underestimating their standard of living.
Khrushchev argued that he focused on necessities. It was hinted that the Soviet Union have nuclear weapons too. As Khrushchev said, "We too are giants. You want to threaten us, we will answer threats with threats. We have the means at our disposal. Ours are better than yours." Both sides were intimidated by one another, never making a move, prolonging the war. The two ensured to show their power to the world, as the debate would be broadcasted by the reporters, as said by Susan E. Reed in Who Will Beat Whom, Volume 9 in 2008. Canada, already opposing the idea of a nuclear war, were more frightened of a war commencing. This fright led to a mindset that no weapons should be used.
The implication of the Soviets having the ability to reach the same economical and military level as the United States provided a threat to multiple countries around the world who were now aware of the Soviets' uprising power. Moreover, they were able to talk about their political ideas and debate about their policies, which allowed them to discuss that regardless of having contradicting ideas, they both have their own benefits. This only causes the war to drag on as both parties believe that they are governing correctly. Neither of them were able to support the other.
Though never publicly supported, they were able to get civilians to approve of their ideologies, as these civilians heard about the benefits of different governmental ways. Propaganda clearly portrayed that Canada did not support communism, just like America. Communists in Canada were discriminated. However, there were people such as housewives who supported communism because of when Khrushchev said, "Your capitalist attitude toward women does not occur under communism," as said in the CIA transcript, page 4.
The policies of the idea were able to sit in people's head, and since people pitied communists, they saw no reason for war to begin. The debate itself can be interpreted as a propaganda event in which both leaders were able to promote their ideologies to other countries. This let the war drag on as people secretly pitied and understood communism.
A classified reason Nixon went to the exhibition was to make a point that they will not abandon West Berlin, as written in his book Sixth Crisis from 1962. He jammed his finger into Khrushchev's chest and said, "No one should ever use his strength to put another in the position where he in effect has an ultimatum. If war comes, we both lose." Elliot Erwitt of Magnum Photos was able to capture a picture of this.
Nixon got the chance to be brutally honest about the realities of war, implementing fear in Khrushchev's mind about a devastating reality. Both leaders had attempted to get people to support their political beliefs, ultimately threatening each other with hidden meanings and letting their enemy know the extent at which they are willing to go.
Furthermore, the formality of the debate and both members' aspiration to stay in power forced the leaders from both sides to be civil as they clandestinely plotted and prepared for a possible war. Both members of the debate were strongly known leaders and had to keep up a respectable public appearance. Thus, both leaders had important rules they must follow.
To be honest with you, I think it was a propaganda stunt for both of the men. Nixon, for example, used the debates to boost his public appeal and secure the Republican presidency nomination.
People may think that the war dragged on for multiple reasons, but it was because leaders threatened each other at the kitchen debates. The Soviets even opened up an exhibition in New York City, as written by Harrison E. Salisbury in the New York Times. This way they were able to influence positive images of communism into other minds.
Khrushchev was invited to America and visited many important places such as major cities, vacation spots, and farms.
Eventually, the two leaders agreed that their nations needed to do a better job of cooperating with one another.
As said by Robert Marshall in History Brief at 1 minute and 48 seconds.
But they continued to plot against each other. For example, the Soviets put nuclear weapons in Cuba, so disregarding the known consequences of a possible war because both superpowers were intimidated by one another and did not trust each other, letting the war lengthen. Anytime the countries established a level of understanding, it was always broken. This later led to more countries realizing they would be defenseless if they are not prepared for a nuclear war. Thus, China has seized the opportunity to catch up, with a defense budget that tends to grow by more than 10% a year, as said by David Parkins in Who's Afraid of America, The Economist, in 2015. Since tensions are still present, the Cold War has never ended. The formality during the debate had hidden intentions as both sides plotted behind closed doors as they were constantly threatened by their enemy, causing even more countries to join later in the future.
In conclusion, the kitchen debate caused both superpowers to be intimidated by one another, hence causing the Cold War to be dragged on while nuclear weapons are never used on the enemy. For long periods of time, the United States was the authoritative and dominant country throughout the world. Khrushchev got an opportunity to announce to the world that the Soviet Union is also vigorous. This led to people around the world hearing about Khrushchev's comments, who now have a reason to be frightened and suspicious of the Soviet Union. Furthermore, the debate also allowed for Khrushchev and Nixon to be able to talk about their contradicting ideologies, and though the governments never publicly supported each other, the debate affected the mindset of civilians about the enemy's policies. They were now aware that the government's propaganda was exaggerating and there was no reason to involve themselves in a nuclear war hurting millions. Additionally, any time that they were able to establish a level of trust or understanding, such as at the kitchen debate, new information would be discovered about the enemy, ruining any established understanding. Tensions between the countries for the start of a nuclear war remain present today, and instances like the kitchen debates are destined to take place again as history will repeat.